Super Mario Maker 2 recently released its final major update 3.0.0. With it came an addition I never saw coming, the koopalings. Each of which have their own unique mechanics, bringing the total bosses up from 15, with 5 types of Bowser and Boom Boom, 4 Bowser Jr.'s and a Pom Pom, to a total of 43. So today, I thought it would be fun to rank them all based off their mechanics and how helpful I can see them being in future levels. Now you may be wondering where I got 43 from. Well, I will not only be ranking each boss, but each of their different appearances across the different game styles, as yes, they do sometimes have different mechanics. For this list, the main factor will be functionality, and how well they can work with the other things in Mario Maker to make interesting bosses. Looks will only really be a factor between the same type of bosses if they work the same between multiple game styles. For example, Roy works pretty much the exact same in Mario Bros. 1 and 3, which means looks is basically the only factor we can change. I'll be going pretty quickly through some of these, telling you their properties and maybe some possible uses along the way. But with that being said, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as that'd help me out a huge bunch. I worked on this list with my Discord, so if you want to help out with future videos, make sure to check out my Discord link in the description. But anyways, let's jump into my rankings for all the bosses in Super Mario Maker 2. First off on our list was by far the easiest to decide. The worst boss in Super Mario Maker 2 is easily Meowser. He is way too chaotic to work at pretty much any type of level. To this day, I still haven't really seen a good use for him, unlike all of the other bosses. Why is he so chaotic, you may ask? Well, he's been able to jump in and out of the background, making it basically impossible to keep him in one place. Additionally, people like to have fireball spamming Bowser fights, which just aren't really that fun at all. At least for normal Bowser, it's a lot better. But with Meowser, it's just so much worse, as he can just randomly avoid your attacks whenever he wants. If he has wings, it can be even significantly worse, because he stands in the background for significantly longer. Look how long this took me getting footage. For a second, I actually thought this was broken, and that he wasn't ever going to come back. Look just how long this takes. Meowser is way too hard to work with in any level, so for that, he is absolutely the worst boss in Mario Maker 2. Without question. Okay, moving on to our next boss, we have Pom Pom. Now, while she may be ranked as second worst, keep in mind, she is infinitely better than Meowser. It's not even a close competition. She basically creates a clone of herself and throws a ninja star at the player. While cloning, she will teleport into the background before coming back into the mainland. This can lead her to sometimes going outside of the boss arena. Plus, with walls being no help against her, she's not really helpful in any sort of complex boss setup. She's probably also the easiest boss in the game, with my death count to her probably being lower than any of the others. While she is not even close to as bad as Meowser, and I have seen her quite a few times used well, she still gets the spot for being the second worst boss. Okay, so I want to know, from now on, all of the same enemy will be next to each other in the ranking. For example, all Ludwigs will take up 4 adjacent spots, all Larrys will take up 4 adjacent spots next to each other, etc. So I believe the next 4 spots should go to Wendy. Sure, she may be the funny Smash meme, but the way she works in Mario Maker 2 is so boring. She is way too slow and her projectiles are even slower. The way they work is cool, however they're way too slow to be challenging or really useful in any way. Now, since she's the first koopaling here, there's a major difference between game styles that I think I should go ahead and mention. In the first 3 Mario styles, being Mario 1, 3, and World, koopalings will jump in their shell. However, in New Super Mario Bros. U, they'll just slide along the ground like Bowser Jr. when getting hit, which is a lot easier to deal with. It really depends on personal preference on what you prefer, however to me it depends on the koopaling which one is better. In this case, I think the New Soup style hurts Wendy as she's already easy enough. So I believe New Super Mario Bros. U Wendy takes 41. The other 3 Wendys are going to be based on how she looks in the other styles. So SMB1 Wendy is at 40, SMB3 Wendy is at 39, and Super Mario World Wendy is at 38. Speaking of Super Mario World Wendy, a bit of a fun fact is that the original reveal trailer, they actually showed Wendy in the Super Mario World theme using the sprite from Mario 3 Wendy. This was likely just a placeholder until they made the Mario World design, but I still think it's a little neat fact for you. Our next koopaling is Iggy. Man, I feel bad for putting Iggy this low after saying he's the worst Bowser Jr. costume in Ultimate. I like Iggy, I swear, it's just he doesn't function great. Like Wendy, he's fairly slow, though he is a bit faster. He doesn't really do much besides move back and forth, which is probably the lamest gimmick out of all the koopalings. I wish he was able to climb walls like he did in his boss fights in New Super Mario Bros. U, as that would have been very interesting. However, they went with a pretty underwhelming option. As for how his game styles compare, I think New Super Mario Bros. U is again the worst, as Iggy's already so easy, and not letting him jump in his shell makes him absolutely no challenge whatsoever, so New Soup gets the 37th spot. Super Mario Bros. 3, oh my gosh! This is the most horrific thing I've ever seen, and is by far the most ugly sprite in the game. Even though his mechanics are better in Mario 3, I'm just gonna switch him in New Soup, okay? So New Soup, you get to move up to 36, okay? Anyways, Super Mario Bros. 1 Iggy takes 35, and Super Mario World again has its version of Iggy take the highest spot at 34. Now, I think from this point onwards, all the bosses are good. The other ones were mediocre and Meowser was horrible, but from here up, they're all at least solid. Starting us off, we have Larry. He's different from the other koopalings in that he doesn't really have a gimmick. While that may seem like a bad thing at first, let me explain why I actually like this. It's always good to have a more basic version to build off of for all the other koopalings. You need a good base, and Larry is that simplistic base. He's great for a starter boss of a super world, for example, as he's really one of the most basic bosses there is. Now, yes, while I do appreciate how simple he is, that can only really get you so far, and I think right here is just about the highest justifiable spot for him. As for the game style ranking, it actually goes in chronological order, as I feel like they improved his design with every new game style. So SMB1 is at 33, SMB3 Larry's at 32, Mario World is at 31, and New Soup is at 30. I also want to mention, Larry's one of the few koopalings that I prefer doesn't jump in his shell upon getting hit. Since he's supposed to be a simple and easy boss, making him slide on the floor fits much better with his intended use, which is why I believe the New Soup one is the best one. This next one here I feel will be a bit controversial. I believe Roy is to be the next boss on the list. While yes, he may be our boy. Oh, hold on, that's the wrong one.
Bruh.
That's better. Anyways, while he may be our boy, I think he's basically just a worse Morton. Roy's gimmick is that he'll bury himself into the ground and jump down from the floor and ceilings in random spots. While I definitely think he can be used in some good setups, it does bring up the issue Pom Pom and Meowser have, where it's hard to contain him as it doesn't matter if there's a wall or not. He could just dig through it. Now, the reason Roy is higher than the others is because this mechanic is very unique, and I believe he'll also be able to have the most interesting boss room designs, as he'll be able to appear from any surface, even if it's not connected. He's an interesting boss for sure, however he's a bit too random to work in as many boss setups as everyone else, and his stun attack basically doesn't even really work. Especially in New Soup, he takes forever to attack, just watch. For that reason, Roy in New Soup is the worst Roy at 29, with the rest being in chronological order with SMB1 at 28, SMB3 at 27, and Super Mario World at 26. Okay, this next one honestly makes me sad since he's my favorite koopaling, but I think it's Ludwig's time. Ludwig is definitely the hardest koopaling, especially in New Super Mario Bros. U, as he's the only one who will actually shoot projectiles at a good speed. He also shoots 3 at once, 5 if he's on his last hit. He also has a flutter jump, which allows him to go a lot further with his jumps than the other koopalings. He's an interesting one to be sure, and with his unique property of throwing 3 at a time, I could totally see a setup where Mario has to try to survive in a survival room, where they have 2 Ludwigs blasting at him from either side. His flutter jump could also help for some more complex arenas as well. Now, Ludwig is one I feel totally works with both types of shells, both jumping and sliding, as it completely depends on your use. So I'm ranking them SMB1 at 25 because, man, he looks really weird with that fat tooth. Super Mario World at 24 since, I don't really know, I just don't really like this design here for whatever reason. SMB3 at 23, and New Soup Ludwig at 22. Again, like I said, Ludwig is great, however the other bosses can be used in a few more setups. Also, like Wendy, his Mario 3 design was also used in the Mario World segment of the trailer for the koopalings. Taking a break from the koopalings, we have the main man himself, Bowser, kicking off the top 20. Bowser is of course the main baddie of the Mario series, and as such, he's great for a final boss of a super world, or just a boss in general. He takes more hits to defeat than any of the other bosses, and sure, some will do super lame spam fireballs to win setups. However, you could do a lot of cool things with Bowser. Here for example, one of my levels, you have to lead a spike ball over to Bowser and hit him 4 times. Bowser also shoots fire, giving the player an obstacle to dodge in this fight. Bowser is also great for setups where the player has to hit him in creative ways, while dodging fire, as he's the only one that can't be jumped on to defeat. Bowser will also behave quite differently in different game styles. In Mario 1, he's pretty basic, just shooting fire and jumping around. In Mario 3, he jumps into the air and ground pounds down, causing Mario to get stunned if he's on the floor, and he'll also break blocks he lands on. In Mario World, Bowser gains the ability to bounce players back, trying to run through him, and he can also make fire rain from the sky. Finally, New Super Mario Bros. Can also bounce players back, along with shooting several fireballs at once in a semicircle. Now this all sounds great, so why is Bowser only around halfway through the list? Well, it's 2 reasons. The smaller reason is that most players will just use him in poorly designed fireball spam to win fights. This isn't a huge issue as we should really be focusing on their potential, but the sheer amount of Bowser fights like this becomes impossible to ignore. The much bigger issue though is that Bowser loads in from way too far away. There have been so many levels that I've played that get completely ruined since the boss fight they had planned later on with Bowser keeps interrupting the action. If you ever want to use Bowser, you usually have to place him really far away from any other part of the level, which is extremely obnoxious. Take the level I showed earlier for example. I have 2 whole screens free of nothing, which I could have been used to make more level, however instead I have to keep them empty so that Bowser can't attack the player earlier than he's supposed to. While I don't think they'll ever change this, I really wish they did. Since Bowser can act so different, this all comes down to personal preference, but I'm going to rate them SMB1 at 21 for being the most basic, SMB3 at 20 as his ability is pretty solid, New Soup at 19 as him being able to push players back is really good, however sometimes he can be pretty annoying to deal with, and Mario World at 18 as his attack patterns are very cool, and I always liked this sprite for whatever reason, it just looks really nice. Following right after Bowser is his son, Bowser Jr. While Bowser Jr. doesn't completely change based off the game style, and stays pretty much the same, he's a lot less chaotic and he also gains new abilities depending on what's given to him. Upon giving him wings, he'll be able to throw hammers, and be able to fly back from the void, which could lead to some interesting boss rooms. In a clown car, he will throw shells, which I find much more useful than the bombs Bowser throws out. Finally, Bowser Jr. is able to break through more things when he has a super mushroom. With just how many different ways Bowser Jr. can be combined with different items, he has to be up here. On top of all the things I just mentioned, he'll be able to shoot fireballs as well, and go into his shell upon being hit. While he's fairly easy when he's alone by himself, he can easily be used in many different setups due to his small size and less chaotic attack patterns. The most obvious example is the iconic Mecha Bowzilla from Mario Maker 1, that can of course be recreated here with even more features. He also doesn't load extremely far off screen like Bowser does, making him way more useful in levels without much space. The only real issue I can think of with him is that he can go through the floor sometimes in boss arenas. However, this is really only a problem if your boss fight is on top of another section of your level, which isn't really that common. Since he acts pretty similar in all the themes, his looks will be the main deciding factor here. So SMB1 at 17, SMB3 at 16, New Soup at 15, and Super Mario World at 14. I mean, come on, he just looks adorable here. And we are officially down to the final 3. Morton, Lemmy, and Boom Boom. And I think now it's time for Morton. Morton is pretty easy to understand. He will jump into the air and upon landing will cause Mario to be stunned if he's on the ground, and he'll also shoot out 2 spells to either side that will right across the ground, walls, and ceilings. While he may be pretty simple, I think he's great as his shockwave spells are very unique. This could lead to not only some interesting boss situations, but maybe even unique attacks throughout an entire level. For a cool boss example, maybe you could have the player enter a room and at both sides of him are 2 Mortons, which will ground pound and Mario will have to try to avoid being stunned, and have to avoid the spells being shot out at him. Eventually, once the timer runs out, he'll be able to leave. You could also use this in a normal level as well. By having Morton encased in a box, with one way so he can attack Mario but Mario can't attack him, this will lead to a section to where the player would not only have to survive from normal obstacles like these skewers here, but also Morton's spells. Morton's used best in a normal level if he's in a section where Mario would normally have to wait so that he has time to attack. For example, the skewers here may be thwomps, some conveyors, and maybe fire bars. When doing this though, keep in mind you can only have 7 Mortons per sub-area, or 14 in total. His shockwave spell and stunning are both extremely useful, and since he will stay inside a closed area unlike Roy, he's extremely helpful. I do find Morton's sliding shell more useful, so I ranked them in chronological order. SMB1 at 13, SMB3 at 12, Super Mario World at 11, and starting our top 10, New Super Mario Bros. U Morton at 10th place. 2 bosses left. Who will take number 1? Will it be Boom Boom or Lemmy? This was quite tricky, but I'm going to have to give runner-up to Lemmy. He's by far one of the most unique bosses in terms of his mechanics. Instead of a simple spell, he will shoot out rubber balls at the player that will bounce them around if touched. Sure, if by himself, he's a pretty simple boss and super easy, but what you can do and build around him is far more interesting. Like Morton, he not only just works as a boss, but also as a great obstacle throughout an entire level. Take this boss room for example. It's similar to Morton's in that there's 2 of them at each side of Mario, however he doesn't have much room to stand, so if he gets hit by the balls, he has a very high chance of getting pushed off the platform and dying before the timer expires. You can also use Lemmy to dispense these balls throughout a level. Maybe you could put him in a tight corridor where Mario has to try to avoid them in order to get through, with maybe a few pits along the way, so that if Mario falls, he dies. Maybe you could have the balls in a more open area that will cause Mario to fall if hit, or you could bounce off of them in order to get a secret, or maybe even just progress through the level. I'm definitely not stealing that idea from my brother, by the way. But yeah, out of all of these other koopalings, he has more setups than any of the others. The only real negative thing is that I really wish we could place his ball spells and bullet blasters just by themselves, like how he can place spike balls by themselves, as that'd be super helpful. However, I'm just happy they're here at all. As for the ranking, since the main way I see him being used is in contraptions, the way his shell moves barely matters, so I'm again ranking them in chronological order, being SMB1 for 9th, SMB3 for 8th, Super Mario World for 7th, and finally New Soup Lemmy taking 6th. This one I'm really interested to see how players use in the future, so let me know if you guys think of any good ideas for him. Well, we only have one left. The Mad Lad himself, Boom Boom, takes the top 5 spots. Now, I could definitely see some of you being confused by this decision, so let me explain. Boom Boom is simple, which makes him incredibly helpful for making custom bosses. He doesn't really have any wacky mechanics in his normal form, and he really just acts like an enemy that takes 3 hits or more, if you're using a weapon like a Fire Flower, to kill. This, however, is an extremely good thing. Mario Maker is all about customization and making unique and interesting experiences for your players, and with how simple Boom Boom is, he does this job the best out of anyone. In fact, I would say he does his job perfectly. In my boss battle ideas video I made a little while back, he was the boss that was used the most, being in 3 out of the 10 ideas. Objection! He's great for basically any type of arena you want to make. For example, here's a fight from my first level I made, where Mario has to try to avoid Boom Boom while on a seesaw until they eventually make it to the top and escape. Another one I'm working on right now for my new level, that I should hopefully finish here shortly about the boomerang flower, is Mario gets trapped where he has to hit a Boom Boom with boomerangs while avoiding spike balls and stopping this bomb from killing him. Boom Boom is great for nearly any type of boss fight you want, which is why I feel he has to take the top spots. He's good for actually fighting him directly, good for avoiding or fighting him in a custom arena, or he's good for requiring the player to have something to hit multiple times until they can finish a room. But as for the ranking of the Boom Booms, they each act slightly differently, with SMB1 being the worst at number 5, New Soup at 4 for being a bit too easy, SMB3 at 3, Mario World at 2 for being the best 2D Boom Boom with a bunch of different moves and not being too easy unlike the others, and the best has to be the 3D World Boom Boom. He has a bunch of different types of attacks, like going into his shell upon getting hit, spinning his arms around, and even turning invisible. All of these are cool, but the main reason he's number 1 is because he's really the only boss in 3D World that can be used in great ways and in contraptions. Since the other 2 completely ignore walls, Boom Boom is basically the only usable one here, making him the best and most helpful boss in the game. Kinda nice ending with 3D World with us starting with it, huh? But let's be honest. All of these bosses fail in comparison to the absolute Chad Drybones. Drybones for Smash. But anyways, that's it for this video. This is quite a challenging list to put together, and I can't thank my Discord enough for helping me figure out this ranking. Usually I'll say my video ideas in my Discord ahead of time, so if you want to hear about them early or maybe even help out like they did in this case, then join using the link in the description. It was truly a lot of fun to do, and I could not have done it by myself. But anyways, do you all agree with my list? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like and maybe even subscribe for more on Super Mario Maker 2 and anything else Nintendo Switch. Link to my Twitter and Maker ID are in the description. Also, I mentioned that new boomerang level I'm working on. I showed you all that boss fight. Let me know if it looks a bit too confusing, because that's mainly the main gripe I have before uploading it. Once I'm sure that it's good, then it will be up soon. But anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.